Hey everybody out there in YouTube and the YTPC. Went out hunting this morning and saw 3 deer, and that was pretty cool, and even got to try out my call. But anyways, I just happened to thought about a story that I heard, and also I've heard 2 different adaptations of it, and I read an adaptation of it, and I just thought I'd share it with you. That made me think. The way the hunt went this morning kind of made me think about this story. But anyways, so what happened out in the field this morning was saw 3 deer off of a distance, probably about 5 or 6 yards off. Tried to call them in, and they just kept going the other way. But we sat there and we heard the birds and saw some squirrels and stuff of that nature. But it reminded me of this little story. It's about a Cherokee boy who was coming of age and his uncle. And one evening, his uncle looked at him and told him to follow him. Well, he followed his uncle a little ways from the little village where they was at, small town, and they went deep into the woods. Well, he started noticing that it was starting to get darker and darker as the sun started going down, and just right before the sun went completely down and there was a little light outside still, his uncle pointed at him to sit at this one spot and told him not to move until he came back for him. So he sat there and and he up and fell asleep a little bit, but at the same time he woke up right before the sun had begun to rise, and it was still a little dark outside, and pretty soon the sunlight started coming up about like you see out here. And all of a sudden he looked around him and he started hearing birds chirp and flying right next to him like he didn't even exist. And all of a sudden he looked over to the left side of him and he saw a deer and its fawn just grazing just not even a foot from him. And off in the distance or so, he looked over. There was an old black bear just a foraging and a digging. Didn't pay him no attention at all. And then he even seen a couple of wolves just running through the woods playing. Even after to sniff his way. He even had a little forest mouse just kind of sitting next to him, just eating on a seed. Well, before you know, the sun was just about almost a third of the way in the middle of the sky, and all of a sudden his uncle he saw, and he motioned him to follow him. Well, they was walking and through the woods back to the village, and just as the sun got into the middle of the sky, and they was probably a couple yards away from the town or the village, his uncle turned back to him and asked them, "What did you learn, nephew?" And he replied back to his uncle and he said, "I learned that if you was to get quiet enough and still enough, that you become part of your surroundings, and that you become also part of the animals that are there." And his uncle looked at him and said, "Well done, nephew." And then they began to walk back to the village or the town. That there's a story I heard, and that's the simpler version of the story. There's a more longer, elongated version of that story, but I just wanted to share it with you because But on this hunt I went on this morning, it just reminded me of that, and I just wanted to share that. And I just hope that y'all like it. Well, wherever you're at in this world, may you be blessed. And if you're hunting, well, happy hunting.